All right, so today we're just going to be continuing on with what we started yesterday. Yesterday we were looking at arithmetic sequences and writing rules for them. Today we're going to be looking at finding the sum of a finite arithmetic series. So finite means it's got an end, right? It's got a beginning and an end. So suppose I have a really basic series here. Okay. Now, if I wanted to find the sum of that series, I'd have to add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7, etc., all the way up to 100, right? And that's a lot of work. So, one thing that, actually we cover this in the problem-solving class, is look for a pattern and a way to make it easier. And if we look at what the first one and the last one add up to, what do they add up to? 101. And now if I go inside one, what do those add up to? 101. And if I go inside again, what do those add up to? 101. So that's going to happen every time. I've got 100 numbers, so how many pairs do I have? 50. So I could actually figure out the sum by just doing 50 times 101, couldn't I? Which is like, yeah, 50-50. Okay, so that's where this equation comes from, right here. I take the first one and the last one, I add them together, and then I take the number of terms and divide it in half, because essentially we're making them into pairs. How many pairs do I have? Okay. So, for example 5, we got what is the sum of the arithmetic series? I goes from 1 to 20, and we have 3 plus 5i. So now instead of figuring out plugging in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I only need to plug in the 1 and the 20. So if I plug in the 1, I get 3 plus 5 times 1, and that's 8, right? And if I plug in the 20, I have 3 plus 5 times 20, and that's 103. So that's my my first and my last term. I add them together, and how many terms are we adding up here? Well, we have a total of 20, right? So I'm going to take that 20 and divide it by 2, and then I'm going to have 8 plus 103. I'm going to add those together. So yeah, I have 10 pairs. And the first and the last add up to 111, so 1,110. Not too rough, right? You have to cut it in half because we're making pairs. We're pairing up the end ones together and then moving inwards, basically.
So could you explain like the sentence you just said?
Okay, so the reason I'm cutting the 20 in half is that like this diagram up here, I'm pairing up the first and the last, and then I'm moving in one and I'm moving in one, and I'm making pairs out of the numbers that are all going to add up to the same thing. In this case, if I wrote the sequence out, if I had so let's see, so one was 8, and then we're adding 5, so I'd have 8, 13, 18, etc., up to 103. Well, 5 less than that is 98. 5 less than that is 93. And so if you add, like I just did there, all of those add up to 111. 13 and 98, I get 111. 18 and 93, I get 111. So that's why I take the 20 and I cut it in half, because I'm making pairs out of them. Okay? All right. So here's one for you guys to do. Okay? So we've got the sum of the arithmetic series. I goes from 1 to 12, and the expression is 2 plus 7i. Okay, so if you plug in a 1, you get 9. If you plug in a 12, you get 86. And so the sum is going to be half of 12, or 6, times 9 plus 86, which is 95. And when you multiply them together, what did you guys get? 570, yeah. Okay, questions? All right, now I'm going to throw a wrinkle in it. Okay, now I'm going to find the sum of the series where I is from 3 to 10 for 6i minus 5. So my first term is actually going to be the a sub 3. So 6 times 3 minus 5, that's 18 minus 5, or 13, right? And then I'll do a sub 10, which will be 6 times 10 minus 5. What'd you say? 55, yeah. Okay, now the only tricky part is how many terms are there?
7.
So I'm hearing 7 and I'm hearing 8. If you have to count the 3. So if you just do 10 minus 3, you just took the 3 out. There are 8 terms. If you count on your fingers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you've done 8 things, okay? So the number of terms, it's always going to be one more than their difference. So if you just take your ending number minus your beginning number and then add 1 to it, it'll work every time. So in this one, 10 minus 3 plus 1, there are 8 terms. Okay? So that's the only thing that's a little bit tricky, is that you need to remember I can't just do 10 minus 3, because if I do that, I'm not counting the 3. Okay? All right, so then let's go ahead and figure it out. So if I've got 8 terms, I'm going to take my 8, divide it by 2, and multiply that times 13 plus 55. So that's 4 times 68. And so the sum of that would be 272. Okay, so that's the only tricky part, is just making sure you get the number of terms correct and not leave one of them out. So when you're done writing that down, there's one for you guys to do. Okay, so as I walked around, it looked like you guys were all getting 834. A sub 4 was 31. A sub 15 was 108. Add those together, we get 139. And then 15 minus 4 is 11, but you got to add that 4 back on, so 12 terms. So 6 times 139 is 834. Any questions? All right, that's it for today.